Alex stood in the center of the grand ballroom, his gaze sweeping over the lavish decorations that adorned the venue. Today was his wedding day, a day he had looked forward to with a mix of anticipation and nervous excitement. The room was filled with the sweet scent of thousands of white roses, and the soft murmur of classical music created an air of elegance and celebration. Guests were beginning to fill the seats, their faces bright with smiles as they greeted one another, all dressed in their finest attire. As he adjusted his tie, Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. He had come a long way from his humble beginnings to become a successful businessman, and now he was about to marry Sophia, a woman he loved deeply. The thought of starting a new chapter with her filled him with joy. Everything was perfect, the result of months of meticulous planning and a testament to his dedication to detail. In another part of the venue, hidden from the glitz and glamour of the main hall, Sarah quietly arranged plates on a serving tray. Her hands moved automatically, perfected by months of repetition. Despite being visibly pregnant, she wore her waitress uniform with an air of professionalism. Although it was snug around her middle, she was a recent hire through a staffing agency, and this job was a godsend, offering her enough flexibility and pay to cover her mounting bills. Sarah had been told it was a high-profile event, but the agency hadn't given her the name of the groom. As she stepped into the main hall to start her shift, her heart skipped a beat. The opulence of the wedding was unlike anything she had seen during her time as a waitress. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself to focus on her job. She couldn't afford any mistakes, not when she needed every dollar she could earn. The ballroom buzzed with excitement as more guests arrived, talking and laughing, creating a backdrop of cheerful noise. Alex mingled among them, his smile never fading, though his mind was partly elsewhere, running through the day's schedule to ensure everything would proceed without a hitch. Neither Alex nor Sarah knew of the impending awkward reunion that would soon unfold. As Alex turned towards the large, ornate doors to greet a group of late arrivals, his eyes inadvertently caught a glimpse of a familiar figure across the room. His heart stopped for a microsecond, recognition dawning on him as he saw Sarah. Her presence here, at his wedding, as a waitress, was something he had never imagined. The sight of her in this setting, especially in her condition, stirred a whirlwind of emotions in him. Sarah, feeling a set of eyes on her, looked up and met Alex's gaze. The tray in her hand wobbled as their eyes locked. A mix of shock and embarrassment flushed her cheeks. She quickly looked away, hoping the ground would swallow her up. This was her worst fear realized, and now she had to find a way to get through the day without any more surprises. Meanwhile, Alex stood frozen, his mind racing to make sense of this unexpected encounter. The festive atmosphere around him suddenly felt heavy, laden with a past he thought he had moved beyond. As the realization settled in, Alex excused himself from the small group of guests he had been chatting with and took a moment to compose himself in the quietude of the hallway. His heart raced with conflicting emotions, surprise, confusion, and an unexpected concern for Sarah. He peered through the doorway, watching her navigate through the tables with practiced ease, despite the obvious difficulty her pregnancy presented. Her presence here, now, was a puzzle he needed to solve. Sarah, on her part, felt a growing unease. Working Alex's wedding was the last place she wanted to be. She could feel his eyes on her occasionally, and it made her hands tremble slightly, disrupting her usually smooth routine. She wished she could disappear, to simply walk out and never look back, but she needed this job. She couldn't afford to lose even a single day's pay. As guests continued to arrive, the ballroom filled with a lively buzz, making it difficult for Alex to find the right moment to approach Sarah. He watched as she skillfully managed the guests, her interactions professional but her smile forced. Alex remembered that smile. It was the one she used when she was upset but didn't want to talk about it. Seeing it now tugged at his heartstrings, reviving memories of their times together, both good and bad. Eventually, as the crowd thinned out for a moment, Alex saw his opportunity. He walked over to her just as she was setting down a tray at the service station. "Sarah," he started, unsure of what exactly to say. She looked up, startled, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and surprise. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" he asked softly, mindful of the curious glances from nearby guests. Sarah hesitated, glancing around nervously. "Alex, I'm working," she whispered back, her voice tense. "This isn't the time." But Alex gently insisted, indicating a quiet corner away from the prying eyes of the celebration. Reluctantly, she followed, her apprehension clear in the way she held herself, guarded, like she used to be when they argued. Once secluded, Alex took a deep breath. "Why are you here like this, working at your own?" He paused, searching for the right words. "At your condition." His tone was filled with genuine concern, but also a hint of disbelief. "And at my wedding. It doesn't make sense." Sarah looked down, fidgeting with the hem of her apron. "I didn't know it was your wedding," she admitted quietly. "The agency sends me where I'm needed. I just take the shifts that come. I need the money, Alex." The simplicity of her statement struck Alex harder than he expected. He remembered their dreams of building a future together, dreams that had dissolved so painfully. "Sarah, I had no idea you were struggling like this," he said, his voice softening. Sarah met his gaze, her eyes brimming with a resilience born of necessity. "I manage, Alex. That's what I do now. I manage." The conversation paused as a wave of music swelled from the ballroom, reminding them of the. After the initial shock of spotting Sarah among the waitstaff, Alex excused himself from the group of guests he was mingling with and made his way to a more secluded part of the venue. He needed a moment to gather his thoughts and figure out how to approach Sarah without causing a scene. His heart pounded with a mixture of concern and confusion. As he rounded a corner, he spotted Sarah setting down her tray on a service table, her hands slightly trembling. Taking a deep breath, Alex approached her cautiously. "Sarah," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned around, her eyes wide with surprise as they met his. There was a moment of silence, heavy with the years of history between them. "Why are you working here?" "At my wedding?" Alex asked, his voice filled with concern. "And in your condition?" He gestured gently towards her belly, his brow furrowed with worry. He couldn't hide the concern in his voice, nor the genuine confusion about how their paths had crossed in such an unexpected way. Sarah bit her lip, her eyes darting away for a moment before meeting his again. "I didn't know it was your wedding," she admitted, her voice low. "The agency sends me where I'm needed, and I can't really choose my assignments. I need the job, Alex." Her vulnerability was evident in her expression, and it struck a chord in Alex. He remembered the strong, independent woman he had fallen in love with, and seeing her in such a difficult situation stirred a desire to help. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot," Alex replied, his tone softening. "It's just, I was surprised to see you here, like this." Sarah nodded, understanding his confusion. "I know this must be awkward for you. I can leave if you want me to." "No, don't," Alex responded quickly, almost instinctively. The thought of sending her away didn't sit right with him. "That's not what I meant. I just wish there was something I could do to help you." The conversation paused as both processed the weight of the situation. Alex glanced around, ensuring they weren't drawing attention. "Let's find a quiet place to talk. There's a lot I need to understand, and perhaps there's a way I can help you through this." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They found a small, empty conference room nearby, a space that promised privacy for a more in-depth conversation. As they settled in, away from the eyes and ears of the wedding guests, Alex felt a renewed sense of responsibility towards Sarah, an echo of their once shared life, urging him to support her now when she seemed to need it most. Alex sat alone in the small, quiet lounge at the wedding venue, his thoughts a tangled mess. The laughter and music from the grand ballroom seemed distant as he processed everything Sarah had told him. He never imagined seeing her like this, working as a waitress, struggling to make ends meet while carrying a child. And the worst part, he had no idea if the baby was his. The thought unsettled him deeply. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to make sense of it all. Their relationship had ended with so many unanswered questions, so much pain. And yet, despite everything, seeing her in need stirred something inside him. He had spent years working hard to become successful, building the life he had always wanted. But now, faced with Sarah's reality, it didn't feel as fulfilling as he once thought. Sophia, his fiancée, walked into the lounge, her elegant gown shimmering under the soft lights. She had noticed his absence and had come to check on him. "Alex, are you okay? You disappeared for a while," she asked gently, concern in her voice. He hesitated, not sure how to explain everything, but he knew he couldn't keep this from her. "I saw someone I didn't expect to see today," he admitted. "Sarah, my ex-wife. She's one of the waitresses." Sophia's expression shifted from confusion to mild surprise. "Sarah, here, that's unexpected," she said carefully, watching his reaction. "Did you talk to her?" Alex nodded. "She's pregnant, Sophia. She's working this job just to get by. I can't just pretend I didn't see her." His voice was filled with guilt, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like the version of himself he had once been. The one who had loved Sarah, the one who had wanted to protect her. Sophia studied him for a moment before sitting down beside him. "Alex, I understand that this is a shock, but what are you thinking of doing?" Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of uncertainty in her question. He sighed, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "I don't know yet, but I can't just walk away from this. If there's even a chance that the baby is mine, I need to know. And even if it isn't, she's still struggling. I don't want to see her suffer." Sophia was quiet for a moment before she reached for his hand. "You've always had a kind heart, Alex. If you feel like you need to help her, I won't stand in your way. But be sure about what you want to do. This is our wedding day, and whatever decision you make will affect both of us." Alex looked into her eyes, grateful for her understanding. "I just need to talk to Sarah again. I need to know the truth, and then I'll decide what to do next." With that, he stood up, his mind made up. He wasn't sure what he would say to Sarah, but he knew one thing. He couldn't just turn his back on her, not after what he had seen today. Alex found Sarah near the service station, stacking empty plates with quiet focus. He could see the exhaustion on her face, the slight hesitation in her movements. She was trying to get through the night unnoticed, but after their conversation, there was no way he could ignore her situation any longer. Taking a deep breath, he walked up to her. "Sarah, can we talk again?" he asked, his voice softer this time. She looked up, a hint of hesitation in her eyes. "Alex, I really need to finish my shift," she said, avoiding his gaze. "I know," he replied, understanding her position. "But I need to ask you something important. Please." Sarah sighed, setting the plates down. "Fine, but make it quick." Alex led her to a quieter corner of the venue. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them. "Is the baby mine?" he asked directly, his eyes searching hers for the truth. Sarah looked surprised by his question. She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, Alex, the baby isn't yours," she said firmly. "I found out I was pregnant after we separated, but the father, he left when he found out. I've been doing this on my own." Relief and sadness mixed in Alex's chest. He wasn't sure what answer he had been hoping for, but knowing she had been abandoned made his heart ache for her. "You shouldn't have to go through this alone, Sarah," he said after a pause. She let out a short laugh, though there was no humor in it. "I don't have a choice. I have to take care of myself and my baby. No one else is going to do it for me." Alex looked at her for a long moment, then made a decision. "Let me help you." Sarah's eyes snapped up to meet his. "What?" she asked, clearly caught off guard. "I don't mean out of pity," Alex clarified. "I know we have a past, and I know things didn't work out between us. But I don't want to see you struggling like this. You shouldn't be on your feet all day, working in a job that isn't good for you in your condition. Sarah shook her head, her pride flaring up. Alex, I appreciate the thought, but I can't just take your money. I don't want to be a charity case. It's not charity, Alex insisted. It's just help. You need a stable place to stay, a chance to find a better job after the baby is born. I can give you that. No strings attached. Sarah studied him, her emotions warring inside her. She had spent so long being independent, relying only on herself. The idea of accepting help, especially from Alex, felt both comforting and uncomfortable at the same time. I don't know, she admitted finally. Just think about it, Alex said gently. I don't want anything in return. I just don't want you to struggle when I can do something about it. Sarah sighed, unsure of what to say. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she wasn't completely alone. Sarah sat in her small apartment later that night, staring at the ceiling. The events of the wedding replayed in her mind, especially Alex's offer to help her. She had spent so long trying to be strong on her own, refusing to rely on anyone. But now, with her pregnancy nearing its final months and her exhaustion growing each day, she couldn't ignore the truth. She needed help. The next morning, her phone buzzed with a message from Alex. Alex, I meant what I said. You don't have to do this alone. Just let me know if you need anything. Sarah hesitated before typing back. Sarah, I don't want to feel like I owe you anything. A response came almost immediately. Alex, you don't. This isn't about the past. It's just the right thing to do. She sighed, her fingers hovering over the screen. A part of her wanted to refuse, but another part knew she couldn't keep pushing herself to the limit. Finally, she made her decision. Sarah, okay, but nothing more than what's necessary. Later that day, Alex met her at a quiet cafe. He looked relieved when she showed up. I'm glad you came, he said. Sarah sipped her tea, avoiding eye contact. I still don't know if this is a good idea. Alex leaned forward. Sarah, I'm not here to make your life harder. I just want to help. He pulled out a small envelope and placed it on the table. This is for a better apartment, one closer to a clinic, in a safer area. You don't have to take it, but I hope you do. Sarah hesitated before picking it up. Alex, she stopped herself, taking a deep breath. Thank you. I mean it. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to do everything alone. Over the next few weeks, things started to change for Sarah. She moved into the new apartment, one that was warm, safe, and comfortable. She no longer had to work long shifts on her feet, as Alex had also helped her secure a better job with fewer physical demands. At first, accepting help from Alex had felt strange, but as time passed, she realized he wasn't doing this to control her or to make her feel indebted. He genuinely cared. One evening, Alex visited to check on her. How are you feeling? He asked, handing her a bag of groceries. Sarah smiled, something she hadn't done in a while. Better. Less tired. She looked at him and, for the first time, allowed herself to believe that maybe accepting kindness wasn't a weakness. Alex nodded, leaning against the counter. Good. That's all I wanted. As they stood there, an unspoken understanding passed between them. The past was still there, but the future was uncertain. However, for now, Sarah wasn't alone, and that was enough. Sarah's life had taken a turn she never expected. With Alex's help, she was no longer struggling just to get through each day. She had a safe place to live, a stable job that didn't exhaust her, and most importantly, she no longer felt completely alone. It was a strange feeling, accepting kindness after so long of relying only on herself. But as the weeks passed, she realized how much lighter her heart felt when she didn't have to carry everything alone. One afternoon, Alex stopped by her apartment with a bag of groceries, as he often did. He knocked lightly on the door, and when Sarah opened it, she was met with his usual warm smile. I figured you could use some fresh fruits and vegetables, he said, handing her the bag. Sarah chuckled. You don't have to keep bringing me things, you know. I'm not helpless. I know, Alex replied, stepping inside. But you're close to your due date, and I want to make sure you're okay. Sarah sighed, placing the groceries on the counter. She had grown used to Alex's small acts of kindness, but there was still a part of her that felt uneasy about accepting too much from him. You've already done so much, Alex, she said, looking at him seriously. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Alex shook his head. You don't have to. I told you before, this isn't about debt. It's about making sure you and the baby are safe. Sarah paused, watching him. For so long, she had thought of Alex as the man she had lost, someone who had moved on to a different life without her. But now, as she saw the way he continued to show up for her, she wondered if she had misjudged him. Why are you really doing this? She asked softly. Is it just guilt? Or something else? Alex hesitated for a moment, then sighed. At first, maybe it was guilt. Seeing you at the wedding, knowing how much you were struggling, it hit me harder than I expected. But now, I just want to help because I care, Sarah. Because I still respect you, and I don't want you to go through this alone. Sarah felt something stir in her chest, something warm, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She had spent so many months believing that people only stayed until things got hard, that she was always going to be on her own. But Alex was proving her wrong, one small act of kindness at a time. Thank you, she said quietly, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. Alex gave her a small smile. Always. As they stood in the kitchen, a comfortable silence settled between them. They weren't the same people they had once been, and their paths had taken different turns. But in this moment, they weren't enemies or ex-lovers. They were simply two people who had once shared something real, and who, despite everything, still cared. A few weeks later, Sarah sat in the nursery of her new apartment, gently running her fingers over the soft baby clothes neatly folded in a drawer. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, changes, and unexpected support. She never imagined that Alex, her ex-husband, the man she had once thought she would never see again, would become the person standing by her side during one of the most difficult times of her life. She glanced at her phone, where a message from Alex waited. Alex, how are you feeling today? Do you need anything? Sarah smiled softly before replying. Sarah, I'm okay. Just tired. The baby will be here soon. Almost immediately, her phone buzzed again. Alex, I'll stop by later to check on you. Just rest. True to his word, Alex arrived that evening with a bag of food and a warm smile. Sarah opened the door and stepped aside, letting him in. It had become their routine. Him checking in on her, making sure she had everything she needed, and her trying to convince him that she was fine. I brought your favorite soup, Alex said, setting the bag on the kitchen counter. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You remembered? Alex smirked. Of course. You used to order it every time you had a cold. I figured it might help with your energy. Sarah sat down, feeling the deep sense of gratitude she couldn't quite put into words. I don't know what I would have done without your help, Alex, she admitted. I never expected you to still care. Alex leaned against the counter, his expression thoughtful. Just because things didn't work out between us doesn't mean I ever stopped caring, Sarah. He met her eyes, his voice filled with sincerity. You were an important part of my life. That doesn't just go away. For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was an unspoken understanding between them, one that acknowledged their past, but also respected the present. After dinner, as Alex was about to leave, he hesitated at the door. I know I've said this before, but I mean it. If you ever need anything, I'm here. No matter what. Sarah nodded, a soft smile playing on her lips. I know, Alex, and thank you. A few days later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby boy. When she woke up in the hospital room, exhausted but relieved, the first thing she saw was a bouquet of white lilies on the bedside table. Attached to it was a small note. "Congratulations, Stara. You're going to be an amazing mother. Alex." Tears welled in her eyes. But this time, they weren't from sadness. They were from the overwhelming feeling of knowing that even though life had taken them in different directions, kindness, care, and respect still remained. She whispered to herself, maybe not all good things have to end. And with that, she held her son close, ready to start a new chapter, knowing she wasn't as alone as she once thought.